Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. If you don't want karma to get pro-revenge against you, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below and support the channel. That said, our first story of the day is by Infinite Respect 4757. Revenge is a dish served very cold. In my young 20s, I moved to a new city to try to start my career in life. Money was very tight, but I was confident I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner said he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was a fit, they would hire me, and if not, they would pay for the 2 days. Money was so tight at that time that I figured taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I couldn't afford, and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. I did good work both the days and worked very hard, but it wasn't a fit. The owner then tells me, "I know we said we would pay you, but it's just too complicated to set you up for just 2 days, so you'll just have to be happy you got the experience with us." The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad as I really needed the money, but as I was trying to find a job and I figured it was not in my best interest to make waves, as word may get around that I was difficult. I did however decide that someday, some way, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that led to a great career, but I always kept tabs on the owner looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed, and now I was very senior in my chosen profession, but instead of working for a small firm, I was a leader in a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up that I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area that original firm operated in. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on these contracts was at the firm's expense at the time back in the early 2000s. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted them in moving to the next stage. And the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was to shut them down right away and get a bit of revenge, but they were qualified, so I didn't do that. There was some risk to letting them go through to the end though. Though I was the lead, it was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentation came in, and luckily the other firm was a bit better and we went with them. Normally the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call, and that was my little dose of revenge. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, and tell him, "We were impressed with your proposal, but it's just not the right fit. I know you must be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process." I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I could not bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. If you personally got chewed up and spat out by some ungrateful owner, and they took 16 hours of free work off you, let's say 20 years down the line like OP, you end up in a situation where you can actually work with that owner's company. Would your 2-day experience from 20 years ago influence whether or not you even consider them? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by AceReed73. Told, "No parking outside my house, that's my space, on a public road. A punctured tire leads to a year of long petty revenge, UK. There was a bloke who lived over the road from me. He had a little no parking sign in front of his window. Keep in mind this was a UK public road and there was plenty of spaces to park. I parked in front of the house because, it's a public freaking road. He comes out and goes bananas. That's his space and I better move it or else. I refused. Next morning, the front tire had been stabbed. Fair enough. Can't prove it's him. But it was him, so revenge time. I bought an old Ford Fiesta for £300. This was back in 1990. It was a complete shed and genuinely had 14 owners before me. But it passed certification tests and had valid insurance, and I taxed/insured it for virtually no money. I waited for his wife to move their car from their space and parked that bad boy right outside his house on the public road. Again, bloke comes out, goes crazy, and I just smile and say, "Enjoy." Left that wreck outside his place for a full freaking year. Tires got stabbed, windows broken, even got spray painted, kids playing in it, which enraged the bloke even more, and I just left it there. Called the scrapyard with a day left on the insurance, and laughed my butt off every day. No parking that. I definitely understand where, if there's a place to park on the street right in front of your house, being upset if it's taken or blocked up, but it is a public road, you can't just demand people don't park there. My guess is this guy isn't actually trying to enforce that that's their parking spot, they're just trying to be annoying enough so that people won't park there regardless. Our next story is by Blue Collar Nerd. Grumpy neighbors ruined my birthday. My dad never let them enjoy their backyard ever again. We're going a ways back here. I think I was 8 years old, so that puts the story in the late 90s. I grew up on a busy street in a suburb. All the houses are basically right next to each other. On one side of the house, we had the grumpiest, most miserable old couple in their 70s as neighbors. We have a big family and enjoyed cookouts during the summer months. They hated us having parties, and we weren't even doing anything out of the ordinary. Just the type of people that would witch about basically anything for no good reason. Well, it's my 8th birthday party, and we have our typical big family get-together. Well, my favorite gift that year ended up being a Globetrotters basketball. We had a hoop and had a blast playing around. Eventually, the day goes sideways when my ball bounces over grouchy neighbor's fence. All that separates our driveway and basketball court from their backyard is a stockade fence. Well, jerk neighbor was outside, proceeds to grab the ball, take it into his shed, and stab it with a screwdriver. I've never seen my father so angry in my life, but he's not an idiot and didn't do anything stupid. From that day on, he never let them enjoy their backyard ever again. We could see their yard from our house, and anytime they would go outside, he would go out back, crank up his air compressor in the garage, and slam a basketball against the backboard as hard as he could until they went inside. Didn't even pretend for a second that he was doing anything, but making as much noise as possible. He never gave up, never stopped until the grumpy guy eventually passed away 2 years later. We take petty revenge seriously in this family. Thanks, Pops. Well, I'm gonna be honest, it was pretty good revenge until the very, very abrupt ending there. Just the story of tragedy and lovely revenge, and then it all just kind of wraps up with, yeah, and then a couple years later the guy passed away. It's like, oh, okay. Alright, that's the end of a story. This next story is by Loudco HD. My truck can't leave? Neither can yours. I lived in a high-rise apartment building, and my truck wouldn't fit in the underground parkade. It didn't have a lift kit, but it was a 2500 heavy-duty with slightly larger tires, and it did have a headache rack that stuck above the cab a few inches. The apartment had a very limited number of outdoor stalls at the rear of the building, one of which I was assigned. One Saturday afternoon, I was going out with some buds from work when I exited the building, and there was a 53-foot trailer backed up to the building with 4 guys moving furniture in. The truck was kind of jackknifed in, and the trailer was less than a foot from my front bumper. My truck was also backed in with another vehicle behind it. I was trapped. I asked the first guy if they could move the truck. He said I had to ask his boss, asked which one that was, and then waited for the described person. After waiting 15 minutes, asked a different guy where the boss was, and he told me he was upstairs supervising. Thanks. Went in search of the guy and asked him to move his truck so I could get out. Truth be told, he only needed to straighten out his backup job and I could have snuck by, but he flat out refused and frankly was quite rude about it. Told me, tough crap, freak off and wait. Went back downstairs to do just that, and as I was sitting in my truck smoking and listening to tunes, I noticed there was a padlock hanging off the side door of the trailer, and there was a simply huge ring of keys stuck in it. I waited until there were none of the movers around, and I took the ring of keys, put them inside my jacket, and then went and threw them into some bushes some distance away. Then I went back up to my apartment and called my buddies to tell them I wouldn't be joining them. About 4 hours later, the building manager called me about the keys being missing. The movers were done and wanted to leave. I told them I didn't know what he was talking about. He asked me to meet him in the back lot, which I did. Boss mover was all up in my face saying he knew I took his ring, and there were over 75 keys on it and most were one of a kind. I just played dumb. Building management suggested we look at the surveillance video. I was a little scared. I didn't realize there were cameras back there, but I played it cool. We all went to the office and watched the footage, but the cockeyed way he parked the trailer blocked most of the camera's field of view. You could see me get out of my truck and walk towards the trailer, but couldn't see me actually touch the keys, and then you see me walk back beside my truck, exiting the video near the back of the vehicle, but there was nothing in my hands. The footage proved nothing. Boss man called the cops, but they too watched the footage, asked me if I had the keys, which I said no, I didn't, and said there was nothing further to be done. I asked if we were done and when I was going to be able to drive my truck. I was told to rent a car and submit my receipts, which I did. The truck moved the next day, but the trailer was left, perhaps out of spite, at the same angle blocking me in until Wednesday. When I was finally able to move my truck, I noted the side was scratched up and the driver's mirror was hanging down. We went back to the videotape and clearly saw the boss man walking back and forth beside my truck before taking the mirror in both hands and breaking it off. It was my turn to call the cops. The moving company ended up paying my car rental tab $375 plus $5,500 worth of bodywork, paint, decals, and a new mirror. I hope it also cost a bundle to replace all those keys. I lived there for 2 more years after that, and I would check on the key ring from time to time. They were still there the day I moved out. Eventually, some kid's gonna be running around and stumble across 75 keys on a key ring in the middle of nowhere. Maybe building management gets reported to it and they finally put 2 and 2 together. But OP made sure that didn't happen for a good while. And our final story of the day is by Bad Wolf Creative. We can block you too. A little backstory, our new neighbor, who we've not met yet because she/he hasn't moved in since buying the place in January, is ripping up the house foundation without a permit. For months, it's been drilling and concrete piles dragged away in pickup trucks on weekends. There's no supervision and the crews are, well, frankly, jerks. Construction trash in our yard, a porta potty sliding into our rose bushes, and a constant abuse of our driveway. Today, a giant concrete truck blocked our entire garage. There's no way for us to get around it. We tell the driver he needs to move. He says he was told he can park here. By whom? Not us. We talk to another dude that's pumping the concrete into the house basement. We tell him categorically that we did not give permission for the use of our drive. He needs to stop the pour and move because my partner needs to go to a meeting. They just ignore us and keep pumping. This goes on for a couple hours. We call the company phone number that's on their truck. Get hung up on. Call the police non-emergency. They say they'll send a car over but still haven't shown up. We keep going over telling them they have to go. Get another neighbor involved just to be a witness. Finally, the driver says he'll only move if he sees boyfriend open the garage and get in our car. By now, boyfriend canceled his meeting, so technically he doesn't need to go anywhere, but he gets in the car anyway. The dudes unhook the concrete truck and maneuver it out of our driveway and into the street. Boyfriend pulls our tiny Fiat out of the garage and plants it smack in the middle of the driveway entrance. He turns off the engine and locks it. We go inside with dudes yelling obscenities at us. They finish their pour from the road, blocking the entire street. I checked occasionally that they don't mess with our car. Thankfully, they didn't. Christ, I'm so sick of this neighbor, and I haven't even met them yet. A lot of folks are asking why we haven't reported them to the city. We had a couple months ago, the last time the crew did something to really tick us off. The construction stopped for a little while, but I'm not sure it was the direct result of our report or just a natural stopping point. The problem is, for the city to do anything about it, they have to catch them in the act. The houses are on a steep hill sloping down away from the road. There's very little visible from the street, and they're smart enough to only use giant concrete trucks on weekends. All I know is when they're violating issues like this, if they don't have a permit, if they're not supposed to be there, there's definitely some kind of official or service or something that you can call that would love to show up and get some free money off of this job. This might be some kind of like friends with the owner type of situation where the workers aren't actually using a contract or have the proper permits to even be there or do that work. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.